a registered dietitian with functional formularies. And only organic, whole food, and plant-based feeding tube formulas and oral meal replacement. Today's webinar, Just Food, Traditional and Revolutionary Principles of Health and Healing, will provide an overview of the most frequently asked questions and controversial topics in the field of nutrition, including Ayurveda, pH-balanced diet, ketogenic diet, intermittent fasting, and paleo diet. Functional Formularies chooses not to endorse any one type of food pattern for an entire population. It recommends that individuals check with their medical team before beginning to use of any of these diets. The information presented in this webinar should not be considered medical advice and is not intended to prevent, treat, or cure disease. At the end of today's webinar, we will have time for questions. So as you think of questions during this webinar, please type them in the chat box, and we will get to them at the end of today's session, just as long as we have time, and we'll get to all of them at the end. This webinar has been given prior approval for one continuing education credit for registered dietitians and dietetic technicians with the Commission on Dietetic Registration. After today's webinar, I'll be sending you a certificate of completion so that you can claim those credits with CDR. Speaking on today's webinar is Dr. John Manulo, the Director of Nutrition here at Functional Formulary. Here with the team, John leads Nutrition Research and Development Initiative to make whole food nutrition accessible for all people, including those people who require the use of a feeding tube. John is a core faculty member with the Center for Mind-Body Medicine in Washington, D.C. He has taught a variety of nutrition and exercise physiology courses at numerous universities and frequently leads talks and programs on topics such as inflammation, heart health, and metabolic syndrome. John holds a doctorate in human nutrition and food science from the University of Maine and a master's of public health from the University of North Carolina. Thanks for being with us today, John, and I'll turn the presentation over to you.
All right, well, thank you, Tori, and welcome, everyone. It's great to be with you this afternoon. I really wish I were with you in person. It looks like from just looking at who's with us today, everybody comes from such different backgrounds. We have people that are, working with various populations in real desperate need of care, and we have people who are on the research and development side of things. So it's great to have that diversity. Hopefully, we can together dive into this topic, which is, I think, an important one because so many of us work in various settings where, as you know, there's so much confusion and controversy around ways of eating. And I thought when we decided to offer a series of webinars, this would be the best one to offer as an initial one because there's some really important questions that need to be asked, and there's some paradigms I think a lot of us have operated under, certainly myself included, over the years that need to be questioned. So as again, as Tori mentioned, this is not intended to provide any medical advice or any one way of eating. Really, what I want people to get out of this discussion is I want people to ask questions. How does diet influence health? And are there patterns within ways of eating, within particular foods or macronutrients that have a more profound influence on health than others? So, if we were to just consider a handful of early human cultures, societies that use nutrition as an integral or significant component of how they help members within their community or in their culture to survive or overcome illness, we've got some although very different, we've got some very old applications that have been around for thousands of years in some cases. The Ayurveda, which we'll spend a short amount of time on this afternoon, is several thousand years old. It is a way of eating that is still alive and well in India. I've had a chance to travel all through India and meet people who use Ayurveda on a daily basis to have a very high quality of health. And I've started to meet more and more people here in the United States and in Canada that also follow an Ayurvedic way of life, not just with respect to food, that they feel has really allowed them to thrive. So that would be an excellent example of a very strong cultural application with respect to food and again other lifestyle characteristics that make a difference to some people when you talk with them. Chinese medicine, of course, has an enormous food component, and that food is also matched to individuals based on their constitution or their particular needs. This is one, as well as the next two, with respect to Greek medicine and the oldest Central African nutrition and herbal medicine, that I actually have the least amount of research to share with you this afternoon, but I think it's important to at least bring these up and discuss these because they do illustrate how pivotal food has been with respect to the recommendations made in earlier human cultures, whether that would be a day-to-day menu or particular herbs that would be added to a population's diet. There's a real extensive history here, human history, with using plants, herbs, and ways of eating to help people achieve a higher quality of health. So if we were to take a look now, with that as a backdrop, if we were to take a look at some common ancestral dietary patterns versus the more recent Slide septic consensus, if you were to, poll 1,000 physicians or 1,000 people on the streets of North America as to, what is, generally a healthy diet, you see that there's a very, very stark contrast between the ways that early human populations, and some still today eat, whether that's looking at a traditional Sri Lankan diet or some of the Pacific Islanders who get considerable portions of their calories from fat, in some cases 75% of their calories from fat for big parts of the year, or looking at other populations, for instance, some of the islands off the coast of Greece, where you eat a very, very traditional and very accurate Mediterranean diet, or to look at what that actually entails. These are again, stark contrast to what most people that accept it as a normal way of eating. In some cases, they consider it to be a very natural way for humans to eat. And we can go further. Some populations, would look at an organic, grain-based, low-fat diet as being the gold standard for how we were or are intended to eat. But again, that's a much more contemporary perspective than would be those populations, whether we're talking about Native Americans or indigenous populations in other areas of the world, who had much more traditional ancestral diets. And again, I think this is an important backdrop to today's conversation, because we're going to now embark on a conversation looking at some very popular dietary recommendations that have enormous followings. I'm sure you're going to be familiar with several of these. And there's a lot of confusion around those. There's some fear around those, that they are either not healthy, that they put a person or a population at greater risk for either deficiencies or some type of toxicity or something like hyperlipidemia. And we take a look at these, which we will in as great a detail as the clinical research and the studies provide. That's really what I want to maintain, is always that evidence-based perspective. I think that's important for all of us in our careers, our day-to-day life, the work we do. We have to have something as an anchor or as a rudder, so to speak, to keep us on track, so that we don't certainly go down too many rabbit holes, so to speak, with all of these, really just infinite number of different approaches that are out there. All right, so that being said, again, 1980 we established our first dietary guidelines for Americans. And I always struggle, because at that point in time, it could be a coincidence. It's hard to say. My grandmother always said that there was no such thing as coincidences. But in 1980, when we adopted the first dietary guidelines for Americans, we saw a sharp increase in obesity, as well as just a BMI greater than 25, which, of course, by definition is always overweight status for Americans. It certainly got, it's gotten much worse in the last few decades than it did in that first decade, the last 30 years. But again, if we go on the CDC data, it's really interesting to note that those dietary guidelines, which again tended to promote that consensus that I talked about earlier, which was low fat, higher carbohydrate, really staying away from things like dietary cholesterol, saturated fat in particular, as well as maybe a restriction on sodium intake, without really making qualitative differences with respect to the types of fats that may be in a population's diet, and also without enough attention to looking at the quality of carbohydrate and the importance of micronutrients such as potassium and magnesium, which we know now make an enormous difference overall in any population's overall health outcomes at any given point. So then the next question we have to ask ourselves is, how is it we've been measuring the efficacy or the effectiveness of any dietary intervention that may have been recommended for general health or a particular condition? And I think most of us, I'm certainly old enough now to have this experience, and I'm not sure about others of you, but cholesterol has, in my opinion, been one of the most important or premier outcomes, measurements, biomarkers, or targets of any dietary intervention. And we really haven't seen, up until recently, efforts to gain greater glycemic control. All along the way, there have been various investigations as to what's important for weight control and weight loss. And then the one at the bottom I find most intriguing, which is longevity. And other than, the type of work put forth by Dan Wegner, former writer for National Geographic, who has written Blue Zones, there really hasn't been, that much in the way of epidemiological investigation into how dietary patterns match longevity patterns. So, with that being said, I would like to take a look, if we could, again, at that initial paradigm around cholesterol. Put a few slides out for you, but before we get there, these are what I would consider to be those biomarkers and or outcomes that warrant much greater inclusion going forward as nutritionists, as statisticians, as researchers. From whatever area of nutrition you may be involved, I would highly encourage you to look at the research surrounding fasting insulin and its use in developing a HOMA-1R score. And if you're not familiar with the HOMA-1R score, it is widely agreed upon by endocrinologists, primarily in the field of diabetes and insulin resistance work, to be the most effective way that we can, in essence, capture what's going on in an individual with respect to insulin resistance and how well the insulin is working for them or against them. And to calculate a HOMA-1R score, you have to know the fasting insulin level of an individual. It then simply multiplies times their fasting glucose and divided by one of two different denominators, either 22.5 or 405, depending upon which type of units you're converting this into, whether you're going to be using milligrams per deciliter or micromoles. So this is a really important formula for us to understand better and how it relates to dietary patterns. And there's some really fascinating work which has already been done on this, especially around a couple of these different dietary interventions we're going to bring up here in a moment. But I would consider fasting insulin to be overall a more accurate representation of what is going on within an individual's health than total cholesterol. But again, by and large, it's not been used in any of the more general health population studies comparatively. It's really been held as an excellent chemical. In reserve for people who already have diabetes. There are a good number of studies looking at HbA1c in terms of measuring outcomes for diabetic patients, but fasting insulin would be at the top of this list. When it comes to lipids, under the umbrella of various fats and cholesterol carriers, I would consider the high-density lipoprotein to triglyceride ratio to be far more important than a total cholesterol value. You really want to try to have your HDLs higher than your triglycerides. which means you want to have a ratio that's better than 1.0, and you want to keep triglycerides if you could to under 100, possibly under 80, when we really start to look at some of the details in the data surrounding that. So those would be really good biomarkers for us going forward as a research-based community to ask for, and if we're involved in research, to try to incorporate that into the studies that we're involved with. But again, I wouldn't in any way neglect anthropometric measurements such as waist-to-hip ratios or BMIs we've been using now for decades, and actually I feel have their place in this, as well as some newer ones such as synaptic proteins, whether we're talking about sensitive CRT or otherwise, that can detect inflammation that has been looked at here, and it's certainly degenerated from dietary imbalance. So taking a look at, this is one of my favorite slides. I've used this over the last several years to really make people think more closely about total cholesterol and how it relates to health. Take a look at this DHF RSTAT data, which goes back now to 2005, so more than a decade old. You'll see that if you look at these, again, a large number of studies, many of which are meta-analysis in themselves, you see that there's a sweet spot for total cholesterol. It's 200, 250. That's the bottom of this U-shaped curve where you get the lowest all-cause mortality. And this is, again, this is not new. You take a look at World Health Organization data for GAP and serum cholesterol levels, again, this is measured in millimoles, which is easy to convert, each multiplied times 38.7. So, for instance, the millimole value of 5.0 would be about 198 or so for serum cholesterol in kilograms per deciliter. You see that when you get over that 5.00 millimole mark, which is about 200 or so kilograms per deciliter, you start to have lower risk all-cause death rates. So, both for heart disease as well as, again, for all-cause mortality. And this has been shown, so you're aware of that, it's been shown for, again, cardiovascular death rates as well as all-cause mortality for both women as well as for men, and the Pearson's correlation coefficients for the R values are very low for some of these, which would suggest no relationship at best, and maybe an actual inverse relationship, at least very surprising. People consider that. So again, we don't really have the data to support the cholesterol lowering goal for better overall health that unfortunately most of the dietary recommendations, advice, and plans are disseminated for. I think that's a really important paradigm to question, as I mentioned earlier this afternoon. Now, in the area of glycemic control, we do know that if we were to take a look at those macronutrients that have the greatest influence over glycemic control, it is obviously sugar, restricting sugar and simple carbohydrates first and foremost. And, you see that whether you're looking at, research around people who have diabetes and already have a certain level of dysglycemia or loss of glycemic control, or you're looking at populations with no predetermined risk factors, in either case, when you're following this population that is not at risk yet, or you're working with a population already is at risk, restricting sugar and refined carbohydrate intake is first and foremost imperative. And with that, it's important to know, especially if you're doing the work of David Ludwig at the Harvard School of Public Health, and also, certainly the primary investigator, head of the New Balance Obesity Prevention Center at Boston Children's Hospital. His work has really shed incredible volumes of light on this topic and how many sources of carbohydrates are no different than simple sugars upon very simple early digestion within the stomach with a more proximal small intestine. So we're talking about a highly refined grain product, which requires very little salivary amylase to take that to the monosaccharide or the sugar unit. We're talking about things such as refined sugar, corn syrup, and those types of simple sugars. And in many ways, these are synonymous with the effects that they produce on insulin and leading to various levels of insulin resistance. So carbohydrates are important in a variety of different forms to restrict and to keep a certain ceiling on. And again, we take a look at those macronutrients that tend to produce, with their restriction, the greatest amount of weight loss or the best overall weight control for populations. Time and time again, lower carbohydrate, I'm not going to say low carbohydrate diet, you'll see why in a moment, but lower carbohydrate densities is probably the most accurate way that we could portray those interventions which produce the most favorable effects with respect to not only, again, glycemic control, but also weight loss or more effective weight management. And glycemic indexes and glycemic loads can be very useful tools. Again, the work that Dr. Ludwig has done has been very eye-opening for many people. But with that being said, the carbohydrate density is also a very important parameter with which carbohydrate quality can be measured, and it's very simple. It's how many grams of carbohydrate you get per 100 grams of any given food. And when we start to take a look at all these various methods for assessing the quality of the carbohydrates in a population diet, it seems to be where it's at with respect to the highest level of efficacy in helping people gain glycemic control and to achieve significant weight loss or better weight control. So what are people recommending today from a variety of different areas of nutrition advice, whether that's coming from RDs or that's coming from physicians, various types of physicians, whether they be more in the area of endocrinology or specialized in diabetes, or whether that be within the area of functional medicine. We certainly have growing number of physicians countrywide or North America wide. What we see is that the four newest ones are that if you were to take a poll of people who have been offered something that was new and had not been offered prior, it would be the paleo diet, a ketogenic diet, intermittent fasting, or Ayurveda. If we were to look at those diets that have been around for, in terms of being recommended for a much longer period of time, and/or are based on the results from research that has defined, really where they've attempted to be extrapolated to a general population, we would range from the low-fat, Ornish-type diet to the exact polar opposite, which is a very high-protein Atkins diet, to some of those which have been specifically designed for people of particular conditions or diseases, such as the American Heart Association intervention or diet. And you've got the general recommendations, such as the more recent Mind Plate or the previous USDA Food Guide Pyramid, the Mediterranean Food Guide Pyramid that was put forth by Walter Willett. And of course, you have, then we're going to get into these in various ways. You have many individuals who are, big advocates of plant-based, vegetarian, and vegan diets for good reason. We'll take a look at those in a moment. And this is the newest one, which I find most intriguing because I think it ties a lot of the common denominators together within this slide. That's the pH balance diet. If you were to ask me what pH balance meant when I was a graduate student at the University of North Carolina 20 years ago, I thought you were talking about some kind of shampoo. But now we certainly understand much more about a pH balance diet, what it entails, what its goals are, and again, a growing body of evidence suggests that that may be a good place for many of us to start from, depending on who we're working with. So, for those who aren't familiar with David Katz's work in the area of public health, he's done a really amazing job. And he put together this paper along with Miller in fact 2014, so it's about 2 years old now, which looked at some of the more commonly recommended diets, a lot like what we're talking about today. It wasn't taking a look at things like intermittent fasting or ketogenic, because at that time those diets were certainly not as popular as they are now 2 years later. But it did look at many of these other diets we talked about as well as the Mediterranean diet. And you know what David came up with, and those of you who know David, I've known David for a few years, working together at the Center for Mind Body Medicine. He's really taken this on. He's really a pioneer in trying to address the commonalities between, for lack of a better word, effective diets, good diets, healthy diets. He's really trying to show over the years common threads. And what he's consistently come up with, certainly this review of all of them, indicates the same, that those diets which contain the largest amount of minimally processed plant food, which have not inadvertently been converted into sugars, which have not had processed meats, which contain a certain amount of risk associated with them because of that processing. Time and time again, that is the common thread. That can take any of these, as well as some of the ones we're talking about today, real viable options for populations that have specific needs or want to eat a certain way. So it's a great paper. I included that here. I'd love you to dive into this and get a chance to look at this in closer detail. But again, it really comes down to the amount of whole, minimally processed plant foods, regardless of their fat content, regardless of, whether they may be, found in legumes or found in vegetables or found with the sugars that accompany fruits, for instance, that regardless of that, the amount of minimally processed plant material in the diet is the one thing you can say is shared upon by those diets which you tend to see the best overall measurable outcomes when you're looking at a particular biomarker or disease risk reduction. Now, the reason I like to show that slide by Dr. Katz, I also want people to understand there's a lot of confusion around what an actual low-fat diet is or a low-carb diet. And that's what makes it very difficult for many of us in our day-to-day practice to kind of, read through this literature and understand that there are many limitations with respect to the investigations that have been made in these two areas. Because in many cases, a low-fat diet is one depicted as anywhere from 10 upwards to 30% of calories coming from fat. That certainly would be low-fat. And again, depending on where that fat is coming from, that could be, there could be certain risks or there could be certain levels of protection that could also be afforded in that labeled low-fat diet. In essence, I'm saying is that 30% of calories in what is being labeled as a low-fat diet were coming from some highly refined vegetable oil, which has a very high omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. That's a very inherent set of risk factors that would not be found in a similar amount of fat that would be coming from something like coconut oil or olive oil, things we know by looking at research now have much more favorable impacts on a population's or an individual's health. So, and then on the same thing with a low-carb diet, you can see that many low-carb diets are, somewhere between 30 and 37% of the calories coming from carbohydrates. And by definition, that's not a low-carb diet. A low-carb diet would contain less than 130 grams of carbohydrate per day. And if we calculate that to calories, you're talking about 520 calories or less coming from carbohydrates. So for many people, that's considerably less than 30%. It's going to be 20 to 25% of calories coming from carbohydrates. And again, depending on the qualities of those carbohydrates, it could be a very different outcome with respect to an investigation that would compare a low-carb to a standard American diet. Again, this is important stuff for us to consider because time to time again, we read these reviews put forth by advocates for one-way eating, whether it's high-fat Atkins or an Ornish-type diet, and they're very critical of the other diets, and they tend to pick and choose those studies which they have the easiest time identifying pitfalls within. And if you want to compare a low-carb diet to a low-fat diet, and the quality of the fat in your low-fat diet is good, but the quality of carbs in your low-carb diet at 34% of calories are predominantly made up of sugars and simple starches, you're going to get a skewed comparison. And I just want everyone to understand that because we're at a point now when it comes to looking at research where quite often the definitions of the overall dietary intervention do not fit the criteria that we would expect. So here are some, more accurate representations. This is how they, typically are represented when they're recommended by the advocates for those. So, for instance, like Walter Willett at the Harvard School of Public Health is a big advocate for the Mediterranean diet. We're going to look at, his typical definition. You're getting about 40 to 45% of calories from carbohydrates, a variety of sources. The fat would predominantly be from things like olive oil and nuts and seeds. And the protein protein can be somewhere between 10 to 20% of calories, but it usually be about 15% on average. So that is significantly lower in terms of carbohydrate content than the standard American diet, which is going to giving people typically 50 to 55% of calories from carbohydrate. Not a lot of details there. Some of that carbohydrate intake for many Americans predominantly refined or high glycemic. The orange side at the top of the list here in terms of the carbohydrate content being 60% or more the percent of calories per individual, or for those people that he's looked at, Dean Ornish has looked at there, his research center in Sausalito, California. And again, you're going to find good results with many of these different interventions, whether it's the Mediterranean intervention, the Ornish type intervention. But typically, this is really important for us to know, is that in these instances, you're comparing those typically to the standard American diet, which doesn't have the quality, the details around the qualities of the carbohydrates or the qualities of the fats. And that may be why we see with a lot of these interventions such appealing results. Now, below that dotted line, you'll see a paleo diet. This is highly variable. I would want anyone to think that a paleo diet was always 30% of calories coming from protein, or that it was always less than 30% of calories coming from carbohydrates, because really paleo means a few things, which is that it's absent of grain, that it's also absent of legumes, and that it's absent of dairy products, as well as refined oil. So you can see that a paleo diet is very high fat or very low fat, depending on the foods that were chosen by either the investigator or the individual in the case of an animal one type of case study. Then at the bottom, we have the ketogenic diet, which is very restricted in carbohydrate intake. Again, less than, through definition of ketogenic diet, that should be less than 20% of calories coming from protein. And I'd say that a more accurate representation would be restricted to 10% of calories coming from protein, less than 10% of calories coming from carbohydrates. Again, you can see there's an enormous range depicted here, but if you look at well-conducted research in the area of ketosis and the benefits of ketogenic diet, carbohydrates have to be under 10% of total calories. Calories eat 10 carbs, so fiber would count. Protein has to be at 10% or so, or less. And that makes up the difference, which is between 80 to 85% of calories. So this kind of gives you an idea of where this stands. Now, I'm not including the Ayurvedic diet on this because that is highly dependent on the individual as well as the practitioner to see a particular fit for an individual. And the Ayurvedic diet can have high diversity with respect to the fat, the carbohydrate, and the protein content of an individual's recommendations. And I also don't have intermittent fasting on here, which we're going to cover in a few moments, because intermittent fasting, again, can be made up of a wide variety of macronutrients and doesn't have to necessarily fit any of these other criteria. So, I would like to first discuss the paleo diet, which is sometimes often referred to as a hunter-gatherer diet. I have problems with a hunter-gatherer diet because it's either gather or hunter, and as soon as you put hunter on there, people tend to make associations between paleo and a diet high in meat, which certainly shouldn't be the case. The paleo diet, again, as I just mentioned, is free of legumes, it's free of grains, it's free of dairy products. It should be, by definition of what paleo is. It's first put forth, by Loren Cordain, who's considered to be here in North America, really the pioneer in this area in terms of showing what metabolic benefits you can gain by following a paleo diet, Paleolithic type diet. This is what our ancestors would have seen more than 15,000 years ago before the advent of agriculture. And with this diet, you tend to produce in relatively short periods of time, in some cases, a little 10 days. If you look at some of those pilot studies that have been conducted by Fressetto, you see remarkable results in short periods of time. And again, it's for a variety of reasons, but one of the foremost reasons is that you have a marked reduction in the carbohydrate density of the diet. As soon as you start to remove bread products, cereal products, foods that are made with flour, you tend to have a marked drop-off in the glycemic index, the glycemic load. But again, as I'll say again, most importantly, in my opinion, the carbohydrate density of the diet. And so people tend to get marked improvements in their fasting levels, and that glycemic control, is important. And they tend to see very favorable results with respect to the triglyceride to HDL ratio, or the inverse of that ratio, HDL to triglyceride ratio. So again, I think that whether you're looking at this for cardiovascular risk reduction, i.e. metabolic syndrome patterns, where you're looking at that, something like weight control or weight loss. There's a reason why this has so much critical mass behind it as a way of eating. I mean, there are now some of these paleo principles really do seem to work out in human trials in short periods of time. So again, it's worth looking at as something that can maybe be combined if someone is interested with some of the other interventions we're going to talk about. It doesn't have to, as both Troy and I have mentioned, this is not intended to be a one-size-fits-all talk. This is really trying to get us to, as practitioners, as investigators, for those of us who are interested, to ask, more importantly, most importantly, I would say, questions that surround the relationship between ways of eating, dietary patterns, and the influences that it has on human health. I just don't feel that these questions are being asked enough. Other populations that eat a paleo-type diet, there certainly are. They're being looked at by a variety of different researchers, from those in the area of diabetes and resistance work to those who are focused primarily on the microbiome and maybe the roles that the microbiome plays in the etiology of various diseases. But, we look at those areas of Central to South Africa, where populations still follow a very traditional gatherer-hunter diet. There's populations in South America that also, again, have that very ancestral way of eating. And some of these populations will have modest small amounts of dairy products and grains in their diet and do remarkably well, even with that included. So again, it is, I think, both very fascinating for us to take a look at these populations. And at the same time, I think it is also interesting to see that there may be room for hybrids here within the, under the umbrella of whether it's paleo or intermittent fasting. We're going to take a look at in a moment, that it may not have to be all in with respect to these, that there could be room for various combinations. The paper that has really provided the greatest physiological explanation for why people tend to see great results with a paleo-type diet would be the work of someone such as Ian Spreadbury. This paper was looked at the ancestral diets, their acellular carbohydrate content, which is i.e. grains and grain products, and how that really drives a variety of inflammatory conditions that may ultimately arise from aberrations within the microbiome, especially in the distal small intestine, where you get bacterial overgrowth in response to some of these very high carbohydrate-dense diets. This paper is free to any of you who want to look at it in entirety, in great detail. Through WCL Press Online. It's a wonderful paper that was really focused towards diabetes control, and it's now really a landmark paper when we start to look at what it takes to not only reverse diabetes and insulin resistance, but where we can really produce favorable changes in other areas of health as well. And if we take a look at the relationship here between carbohydrate and foods and particular effects, again, this all is going to be downstream from what happens when bacterial populations in the distal small intestines tend to reach that overgrowth level when they're fed a high carbohydrate dense meal day after day. And if you take a look at those foods, many of our ancestral foods have very, very low carbohydrate densities. And also when you start to look at those things at the top of this horizontal bar graph, you get carbohydrate densities, which unfortunately make up the foundation of carbohydrates in many American diets. Here are the most common misconceptions around ancestral or hunter-gatherer type diets, paleo diets. One of the most common misconceptions, as I mentioned earlier, that they have to be high protein, that they have to be low carbohydrate, that they are going to inherently carry a high metabolic acid load or a high potential renal acid load per hour weight, that they have to be very high saturated fat, that they're going to produce very unfavorable changes with respect to serum cholesterol or any other lipid biomarker. Many MDs and RDs have concerns that they're going to be too low in fiber, that they're not going to be nutritionally complete, or that they're going to, again, carry some type of inherent risk factor associated with them, either that they're not providing nutrients, or that they're going to put someone at greater risk for cardiovascular disease and or diabetes. And I want to say that with all of these, none of these are true. All of these are in some way, shape, or form. They are going to be preconceived notions that a lot of people carry forward around this type of dietary recommendation. Someone could follow a Paleolithic diet, eat sweet potatoes at most of their meals. They could eat fruit at every meal. They could get the majority of the fat from things like avocados and other, nuts and seeds. It's time and time again when I work or talk with this type of dietary intervention, this is what I hear. I just want to say that there's no evidence whatsoever to suggest that this type of diet puts people at greater risk. Again, as I shared, there are a significant number of papers now to show that it can produce favorable outcomes, but may not have to be all around. There may be important principles from a paleo type diet that could be applied without having to forego one of the food groups, such as whether it's dairy products or legumes or something like that. So again, just things to think about as we go forward. And now we're going to look at intermittent fasting. Because intermittent fasting has become very, very popular for many individuals who have struggled with their weight, with their energy levels. They are looking for another option as opposed to calorie restriction or low carb, where they feel like they're hungry all the time. Intermittent fasting is, again, there's a growing body of evidence suggesting that it is extremely therapeutic, especially for particular neurological conditions or neurodegenerative diseases, as well as for individuals who are looking to gain control over control of their weight. So there's a couple different ways that someone could come upon a recommendation to go forward with intermittent fasting. Which really what it looks like is you want to restrict eating to anywhere between 8 and 6 hours a day, so 16 hours a day when an individual is not eating. The reason that's important is that, the postprandial state or fed state can last for, anywhere from 4 to 5 hours, depending on what the composition of the last meal was. And the post-absorptive state can last for up to 12 hours or longer, again, depending upon that last meal and the individual who consumed it. But that fasted state typically doesn't start for much, it doesn't start much sooner than 12 hours. In some cases, maybe a little bit longer than the other, and that's going to be a function of the meal that we last had and the individual. But these are the general recommendations for intermittent fasting is, people do not eat after a certain time in the evening or late in the day, and then they don't eat until sometime around the next day. And the reason this is more beneficial for some individuals is that there are really important physiological processes within the human cell that start to become upregulated with a more prolonged abstinence from food, avoiding that postprandial or fed or absorptive state. You get out of those windows of time, you start to have higher levels of autophagy, which is a really important process for a cell's ability to recycle damaged cellular hardware, whether that be protein manufacturing factories such as the cytoplasmic reticulum or the mitochondria, which can become damaged, especially as we get older. There's also autophagy is a very important way for cells to take viruses out of the cell. In some cases, like in the case of the herpes virus, it's really the only way that the human body can, in a natural physiological way, defend itself against particular viruses which become embedded into cells and can evade normal autophagy at low levels, which would only occur after around 12 hours or so of not eating. It takes a little bit of a longer window of time to get some of those viruses completely out of the cell. Apoptosis or cell programmed death is important for those cells which are damaged genetic material to basically self-destruct and to be eliminated from our cellular pool. And ketones really start starts to climb after around 15 to 16 hours. Some important details are that the fats and oils do not interfere with intermittent fasting, so having a significant quantity of fat in the early morning can still allow this intermittent fasting process to roll on. The protein and carbohydrate sources do have to be restricted to very modest or small amounts in that fasting state. So using something like coconut flakes, for instance, can work as long as someone is eating so many coconut flakes that the carbohydrates and the protein levels creep up to a level that will interfere with this intermittent fasting. Ketogenic diets, which have some overlap with intermittent fasting, are those which are very restricted in both carbohydrate and protein content. Again, I mentioned that there are varying recommendations made in both clinical as well as in outpatient type settings where people are given much wider ranges of carbohydrate and proteins to choose from than the research would actually support. What I mean by this is that if we take a look at I'll come back to those slides, but if you take a look at some of the recommendations that have been put forth over the last several decades with respect to ketogenic diet, quite often we hear 4-to-1 ratios of fats, carbs, and protein combined, with some using 3-to-1. Those are not nearly as effective as more detailed recommendations around fat, protein, and carbohydrates. This is important because someone could get, more protein, and let's say if their protein was, something like 20% protein, no carb, but their fat was 80 to 4-to-1 ratio, but at 20% protein, there's a good chance someone is not going to be ketosis because that level of protein is very easy for the body to find ketosis with that stuff to manufacture higher levels of glucose from that. So, it's really important to have the details in place when you are considering either recommending a ketogenic diet for an individual or developing a type of protocol for your institution. It's also important to understand saturated fat and monounsaturated fat will be the best, most beneficial fats to have as the foundation for that large amount of fat in the diet. And that fiber is present at almost every meal if possible because, again, for non-starchy vegetables, there's a way to use things like potato starch and other sources of resistant starch that would not contribute net carbs to an individual's metabolism. But it's really important that this not simply become a highly refined diet made up of no fiber or low fiber and be made up of highly refined vegetable oils, because that will not really offer patient or population benefits that a well-formulated, more specifically detailed ketogenic diet will. Other things that people should really understand is that it's received a bad rap from its early days when it was used primarily in the 1950s. Again, we know that the American Medical Association recommended a ketogenic diet as the primary recommendation for children with epilepsy in the 1950s. And it had, significant amount of effectiveness for that, but then it became looked at as too cumbersome and difficult to follow, and a lot of that is the fact that it was based on, like this what we call the mayonnaise diet, where you're having very high-fat mayonnaise like dressing, so many of a child's meal for foods that eventually the child is, the hell diet, I'm just tired of mayonnaise. So it's important that when a ketogenic diet is recommended, that the family or the patient be advised how to cook, how to make foods much more flavorful with healthy additions or spices, things like, again, coconut in a variety of different forms. Not coconut water, I should know, but coconut, shredded coconut oil, as well as things like grass-fed butter, heavy whipping cream. These high-fat dairy products can be a foundation for a ketogenic diet and can also help immensely, not only the palatability and the diversity, but it can help immensely with the absorption of particular nutrients, which can offer further benefits to the initial reason that the ketogenic diet is being recommended therapeutically. So if I go back, just a few slides here, I know we're running low on time. We talk a little bit about the research to support the ketogenic diet. It doesn't have to be in any way unpalatable. It doesn't have to be overly restrictive. I think that most people have that idea that a ketogenic diet is too difficult for an individual to follow. But again, I think it's the way that a patient or population is educated that demonstrates the effectiveness for long-term compliance with the ketogenic diet. But protein really has to be closely monitored just as much as carbohydrates, to be honest. And in fact, I would say that most people are overly carbohydrate restrictive and are not protein restrictive enough. It keeps them out of that sweet spot with respect to ketosis, which is somewhere between 1.0 and 3.0 millimoles. That's really, you want someone to use a ketone meter. I think that would be really important. They're widely available now from both the clinical as well as scale basis, but I really want someone to use a ketone meter. We're not talking about the type of ketosis here that is associated with starvation-induced ketosis. I think it's really important I say that because there are, again, a lot of misconceived or preconceived notions, I guess, around what ketogenic means or ketosis means. We're talking about having ketone levels in the 1.0 to 3.0 range as opposed to the 5.0 and higher range, which really only occurs with long-term starvation. So, unfortunately, quite often ketogenic is synonymous with healthcare practitioners, providers with starvation-induced ketosis. These are not the same. We're talking about fat, healthy fat, being a staple of the diet. And again, it's been shown that a ketogenic diet tends to spare muscle loss, also produces favorable changes in plenty of blood lipids that we want to look more closely at, such as HDL, triglyceride levels. And for those individuals who have neurologic patterns, whether that be some type of brain cancer or again a seizure disorder, when you look at how a ketogenic diet influences things such as the mTOR pathway, certain lung generation, AMK levels, it's really clear that a ketogenic diet has some overlap with a calorie-restricted diet, but it doesn't have to be calorie-restricted and still provide an individual with the energy to maintain muscle mass. The ketones also help with that, but that's the protein restriction as well as keeping insulin levels low that produce these widespread benefits. Ayurveda, which again, as I mentioned, is a growing area of interest and recommendations being put forth by people who are in a variety of places in medicine, and I've met so many people over the years who have used it as part of their practice, either at a personal level or in their own practice as a dietitian or as a physician, a clinical physician. And, I think when you take a look at the research available to us and all the published peer-reviewed journals, you really, unfortunately, only have this one peer-reviewed pilot study, which is a couple years old, which looked at it as a potential intervention for weight loss, and it was combined with yoga. But again, I think the two are often introduced to an individual or a group together because they tend to have their roots in the same place, and it's more a way of life. Ayurveda is much more a way of life, as is the paleo type intervention. That's just the way that people recommend to eat. There are a long list of papers written by numerous researchers that are asking for more research in this area because they see the potential for Ayurveda to help individuals or populations. Because Ayurveda contains a variety of herbs and botanicals in it. It can contain very healthy fats. It can be focused around more fruits and vegetables, displacing grain-fed meats with healthier legumes. So, there's really a big growing interest in Ayurveda for so many reasons. Again, this is really the only clinical paper that I can share with you today. So in terms of that strength of research that so many of us are looking for, it's not there. It's not where we really maybe want it to be. But I'm hopeful that in the years to come, that more and more organizations are going to consider funding research around Ayurveda-based or Ayurveda-based interventions. Because again, in terms of what I observed in India and what people share with me here in North America, a lot of people have found good results with Ayurveda. But in terms of somehow measuring its efficacy with clinical papers, I'm sorry, I just don't have more at this same time. Now, the last diet that I want to take a look at is the pH balance diet, which I remember clearly 25 years ago, first time I heard this, it was really only being proposed as a possible intervention because of the work done by nephrologists in two different areas of the world, San Francisco, University of San Francisco, Thomas Reamer, and then it was also being looked at by a nephrologist over in Germany that were showing some very interesting results with their attempts to manipulate potential renal acid load of the diet, how that affected not only the renal health, but other areas of health in the population they were looking at. Can't be small towns, but now what we know is that there's a very significant body of evidence showing that the potential renal acid load of a population diet, i.e. the metabolic acid load that's associated with foods they eat day to day, can really predict a significant amount of risk or risk reduction depending on whether that diet is acid loaded or more pH balanced. And again, you could be looking at trying to predict metabolic syndrome, or looking at something like loss of muscle mass later in life, or looking at things like hypertension, or weight loss, which a lot of us have heard is a relationship with over the past. And all of these different areas, there is considerable evidence now to make us ask the question, should we evaluate the potential renal acid load of our patients' diets with some type of dietary assessment tool? And there's an infinite number of possibilities with how we can do that. The USDA, for instance, has the potential renal acid load value for most of the common foods in the U.S. food supply, not when they're combined with one another, but in their individual form. That would be very easy for that to be translated into a potential renal acid load assessment tool. Because really, what we're talking about with the acid load is how does the protein contributed by the food, the phosphorus contributed by the food, and the sulfur that is contributed by any food, how does that challenge the body and the body's ability to buffer those acids out, but not only through the use of the renal system, the microtubules, and the hydroxylation reactions there, because it's really imperative that we understand you will be able to maintain a blood pH of 7.39, even with a very high metabolic acid load at any given meal. But downstream from that, considerable efforts have to be made physiologically by the body to maintain that pH of 7.39. And when we eat more alkaline rich foods, i.e. foods that are high in magnesium, potassium most notably, and calcium, those alkaline minerals tend to take some of the burden off of our renal system and off of our body's efforts to maintain that very narrow parameter of blood pH. So again, the research around these pH-based diets and the potential risk reduction associated with them is fascinating. And I think that when we take a look at this, and again, there's a lot of misconceptions around it. Like, for instance, acid loads, metabolic acid loads are not restricted to only meat and animal protein. In fact, some animal proteins, such as whole milk and whole milk yogurt, I have to say whole because the more of the fat you take out of some of these dairy products in particular, the more acidic they become. But whole milk and whole milk yogurts are pretty close to neutral, very, very weak acid loads, if any, if at all. Grains are weak acids. They're not significant acid loads. They're only weak acid loads. Legumes are neutral to being weak acid loads. So these aren't really significant